All right, what's up, everybody? I guess this is the back to school edition of Celtics Beat. For those of you out there with kids, a lot of them getting ready to go back come Monday. We are sitting here on a Friday again. Weekend's upon us. We can all let our hair down. Well, Evan's hair is always down. Evan Valenti, Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe. I'm Adam Kaufman. And Gary, you have not been on with us since May. So at that point in time, there were a lot of things with this team. They were still, seeking the playoffs at that point. So we were dissecting, are they going to make it out of the play-in tournament? What roster changes need to happen? And, does the front office need an overhaul? What needs to happen on Brad Stevens' bench? Needless to say, much has occurred since we last spoke. So we can get into all that, but here's where I want to begin. I don't expect you to know this, but it seems there's just, obviously BetOnline is a sponsor of this show. There is no safer bet in America right now, Gary, than the fact that after Evan and I record a show with whomever it is kind enough to join us, about 2 hours later, something significant with the Celtics breaks. So do you have anything you'd like to get ahead of right now that might be coming up later this afternoon or tonight?
No, not that I've heard of. No.
It's getting to be ridiculous at this point. We recorded last week, we stopped, and an hour later, the Rob Williams extension was done, making the entire episode kind of moot because we didn't talk about it at all. So it just really stinks. And that's
what was it? There was something the week before too.
There's been the Josh Richardson stuff. There's been, signings with coaches. There's been a whole bunch of things that we've missed by hours, and it's just really annoying. So just trying to get in front of it, Gary. Just trying to get in front of the story. That way we can.
I don't know if you want to text any sources or anything just while we're on, so we can make sure that we really knock this out of the park before we're done.
Sorry, nothing is I have no news to report. Unfortunately.
Nothing imminent. So how? We'll get to the Olympics in a little bit. I know you were there. Generally speaking, how's your summer been?
Oh, very like everybody else's. Trying.
Well, not like everybody else's. I wasn't at the Olympics.
Well, yeah, that, but just like you said, other than the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's been fine. A lot of changes, obviously, with the Celtics. The COVID situation is getting better than worse and better than worse, it seems like. So just trying to, live day to day, survive, and hopefully make it to basketball season.
Yeah, that would be nice. Well, we know it's coming up in October. It's, we're getting back to the norm, which I guess has me thinking, this is something we've discussed in the show in the past. I don't think with you, did you, even though it wasn't the plan, COVID and the pandemic, it just sort of derailed everything and everyone had to adapt. Leagues, players, coaches, just everybody in the world had to adapt. Did you like the Christmas to midsummer format? Is that something you would have liked to have stuck around, or do you like that, now we're getting back to what has been the traditional normal and starting in the fall and going to June?
No, I'm glad we're back to the normal schedule. The late July NBA finals, I just thought that was too long. And starting, the Christmas, we should start on Christmas, no, I don't think we should start the season on Christmas, or you're basically at the NFL playoffs, and it's just too late. Basketball is a fall, winter sport. And then playing deep into late into summer, and then I don't think that's good. I like the October start and the June finish.
Look, you can say what most of us were thinking, Gary. Damn it, the NBA was stealing our summer. We don't want to be up late watching games. We want to be going out and doing stuff.
Yeah, it bumped into the Olympics. It was kind of strange there. But no, whatever ideas they can come up with is fine. You want to try new things. I have no problem with that. But I think the schedule is fine. We're not going to go to 80. We're not going to go to 66 games. This is not going to happen. Owners are not going to give up 7 home gates without taking money from the players, and the players are not going to give up any money. So the whole, we should play 66 games. That's great. Just like 130 games in baseball is, and we should play 14 NFL. Like, we're not doing that. So this is like, it's fantasy land.
We're going the opposite way with football, though. We're adding more games.
Yeah, adding games. Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw. I don't know if you ever saw the Rodney Dangerfield movie Back to School.
Yeah.
And the professor is trying to bring out this, create this economic world where all this happens. And Rodney Dangerfield's like, well, the feds are going to want their part of this, and the union's going to want this. And then he goes, well, what should we call this land? And Rodney goes, fantasy land, because it's not going to happen. It's the same thing with the 66 game season, and it's fantasy land. Like, no one's going to give money back. You realize that that's less money for the league. It's less games. So who's gonna give the money back? Nobody. So let's move on to 82 and October through June.
I think, Gary, if I had outlined for you and for Evan what the Celtics would look like right now, top to bottom, when we spoke back in mid-May, you might have called that fantasy land. Danny Ainge, gone. Brad Stevens in that role now. Ime Udoka, the head coach. The assistants totally, transforming the bench with the exception of Joe Mazzulla. We got an NBA veteran on there now in Damon Stoudemire, who Evan and I are very excited about. And it was, certainly the kind of guy that you spoke with about us or with us, a few months back, that type of guy you want to add on the bench. Kemba Walker's gone. Evan Fournier's gone. Shemi Ojeley's gone. You've got Al Horford back, and Josh Richardson's here, and Chris Dunn is theoretically here. We'll see how long that lasts. Bruno Fernando, Dennis Schroeder is here. The list goes on of what has happened in the last few months, and obviously the extensions, Marcus Smart and Robert Williams. Richardson got an extension before putting on a Boston jersey. Overarching thoughts on just what this has looked like the last few months as the Celtics, well, as Wick Grosbeck has kind of put it, retool, or as opposed to rebuild, I guess.
Well, it's obvious the preparation is for the summer of 2022, and trying to pursue a maximum free agent. Everybody has the Bradley Beal thing. I'm not so sure about that. I think Beal has a real connection to Washington, and the Wizards are going to try all they can, as they did this offseason, by adding Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Like, they're going to try to be competitive and convince Beal that that's the place to stay. So I do think that they're preparing for 2023 or 2022. They're trying to just lay out their salaries. I think it's smart. I think people were a little upset that they weren't really active in free agency, but they've also, Brad also has spent the time making up for Danny's mistakes, moving Tristan Thompson, moving Kemba Walker, being able to get the shrewd, pun intended, and get Dennis Schroeder with that shrewd deal, like waiting it out and seeing what happened there. And he eventually obviously agreed to that, less than $6 million deal. So I think Brad he's equipping this team to be sneaky good. Obviously, they're not going to be the top favorites. You're going to, with Brooklyn and Milwaukee, and then you're going to throw Miami in there, and then the Hawks and the Knicks are going to be back, and then Charlotte's a team I think that's rising, and it's going to be good. And you can throw Indiana. Let's see what happens in Chicago, et cetera. But I think this team can be pretty good. You still have Brown and Tatum. You got Schroeder as your point guard, and Smart. Like, they have a chance to be pretty good. And I think what Brad has done is he set up the salary structure to where they can be flexible next year. He got up under the Walker contract. He still hasn't really addressed the bench in terms of, like, there's still we still have Grant on the roster in terms of the Celtics. Carson Edwards is still around. We'll see what happens. We don't know what happens.
Parker too, right?
Huh?
Jabari Parker too, right?
We don't know what's going to happen with Chris Dunn and Bruno Fernando. So there's still some issues to address there. They still have that second two-way contract they haven't used. So, but I think Brad has done a solid job, a good job at cleaning up some of the messes in the roster, creating more flexibility for the future, bringing Al back, which I think will have a great influence on Robert Williams, and trying to just see, okay, we have two All-Stars, and we have a former All-Star in Horford. We have a player with a lot to prove in Josh Richardson. We have another player who wants to get 100 million next year in Schroeder. Like, let's see how this combination works and see if they can be that kind of Miami from 2 years ago where, they just snuck up on people because they got really good as the season progressed.
You mentioning Tristan Thompson being gone reminded me too. Another guy I didn't mention because I didn't mention Thompson being gone. And his Cantor is another one that's back. And those guys, sort of the juxtaposition between them, not only in that they're both bigs, but all the reported concerns anyway in the locker room concerning Thompson. Cantor is the antithesis of that, comes in not only as being very cheap, but the ultimate glue guy, team guy. So Brad is certainly remaking this thing, and I'm sure Evan, you have plenty of thoughts on your mind as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, the one thing we've always talked about is, you don't play your end of the bench guys all the time, but having experience at the end of your bench is valuable. They still have some of the younger guys like Grant and Carson there, and we'll see with, Romeo, if he can stay healthy, we'll find out there. Nesmith's going to be a player that probably plays for them a little bit more than I think people expect. But they're starting to try and figure out exactly what they need to do to really enhance the Jays, so to speak. And I think by adding some of the guys they have, and they're still, they always talk about, we're not totally finalized on our roster yet. There's still something they can use. There's a couple of trade exceptions that they might be able to use to maybe pull a guy out of somewhere. I'm still enthralled with the idea of trying to get Slow-Mo Anderson on this team. I just love the way he plays, and it would be a great addition. But again, they have some things that they can do. But everything, just the mood around this team changed, and I think we've talked about this with Gary quite a bit. Like, they need different blood, they need different, mindset, they need just a different set of eyes, ears, different brain in there, and they've completely done that in about 3 months. And it's, to me, truly remarkable that they've done that and been able to maybe get a little bit better in the process. I mean, like, you swap out some guys here, some guys there. I think this team, just on paper, and I mean, we're talking on paper and playing games yet, it makes a little more sense to me, Gary. Does not make more sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they were able to make the changes that were necessary, get some of the guys out that maybe weren't as productive as they like. We'll see what happens with the new Ime era. He really, since he was hired, he talked a little bit in summer league, but really, like, what's his plan? What's his defensive and offensive strategies? He's talked about using Marcus Smart more as a ball handler. Like, how is this going to translate with guys like Hardy and Stoudemire on his staff? I don't know if he'll add some more coaches to the staff in the near future, but let's see how that works. I think that there's definitely a level of excitement. I think there's a level of, like, change needed to happen. I think that, I don't think that Tatum and Brown were all broken up. I mean, Brad's still around, but I don't think they were all broken up about the coaching change. I think they probably thought maybe we do need some fresh blood. I think the organization did need a shakeup. And it's got that, not entirely, but with Danny gone and Brad kind of taking over. And we'll see how the power structure goes in the organization, whether it's just all Brad. It's a lot of questions to be answered over the next couple of months. But I think there is definitely a renewed vigor with the Celtics in terms of, like, some of the new guys in the roster. They're bringing in some hungry guys. I thought the Tristan thing would work out, but I think Tristan is at the point in his career where he's more concerned. Like, there's a lot of off the court things I thought that were distracting, his off the court life and things like that. I'm not saying he didn't play hard, but how much does he really, he's got his chip. How much did he really want to win?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, okay, I just want to play in the league until they kick me out? Some people have that type of approach, not saying he's not a winner. He's an NBA champion. But, and who knows how everything went down last year with COVID. We were not able to see a lot of things. Like, we still have no idea the impact that Evan Turner had on the roster. Like, what did he do? Was it positive, negative? Like, obviously he's not back. But what happened there? Was that just a big swing and a miss from Brad to bring back a guy who was really, really just retired? So there's a lot of questions about last year. Maybe some of them will be revealed over the next few months when guys start talking about what happened and the chemistry, et cetera. But something obviously wasn't right about last year. I think there's a renewed excitement about this year, though, and that should make Celtics fans happy.
On that bench, because again, we've spent a lot of time with you talking about it prior to all of this happening. Damon Stoudemire, some of the other veteran assistant coaches that Ime Udoka has a past history with, be it in San Antonio or Philadelphia, Brooklyn, just as guys do. It's a business where you bring in people that that you trust, that you think you work well with. He's filled out that bench. I don't know if he's going to continue to add to it. Do you like the look of it right now? Do you like bringing in a guy like Stoudemire in particular? He's certainly the biggest name that is there.
Yeah, I mean, Hardy's a very good coach. Stoudemire's a guy who's, coached the last couple of years in college, so he's dealt with young guys. I think the players remember him playing. I mean, he was a very, very, very good player during his years. Obviously, the Mighty Mouse years, just the guy who could put the ball in the hoop. I think he'll bring another youthful guy into the staff, a guy who's proven, done it on that level. I think that's a very good addition. I just think Ime is going to bring what I think is a kind of a freshness, but I think more of a disciplinary approach. I don't think he's going to be easy on these guys and buddies with them and hanging out with them. I think he's going to understand that they need to be pushed. They need to be coached to get to that next level. The goal is to have Brown and Tatum reach that elite top 15 level. Jason's very upset, rightfully so, that he didn't make All NBA because if you look at some of the other selections, Jimmy Butler missed 20-something games. Kyrie sat out a week just to get his chill on or to figure things out. He made it. And here's Tatum playing through COVID. We could barely breathe at times on the floor. And he had a 60-point game and a 53-point game, and he still doesn't make it. So I think he's got a legitimate gripe, and he should have something to prove. And honestly, he came away as the second best player on Team USA. I mean, you could maybe include Drew Holiday in that conversation, but behind Durant, Tatum was the most reliable scorer on Team USA and did make some defensive plays. So I think he has something to prove. Jalen's coming off his injury. Hopefully, for the Celtic faithful, he's healthy and ready to go by training camp. We'll have to check on that. You got two cornerstones ready to roll. And then you got guys now who don't have to worry about their contracts, Smart and Williams, and even Richardson. No one's coming in besides Schroeder. No one's coming in with like, oh man, I got some contract issues. I'm going to be a free agent next year. I think signing Richardson to an extension was a smart move. I think I've always liked Richardson. I don't know what happened in Dallas. I don't think he was terrible in Dallas. He just didn't have the great numbers. I liked him. I always thought he hurt the Celtics when he played in Philadelphia. He was able to hit the three ball. He could defend. I like Richardson as a player. I don't know why there were people so down on him about Dallas, or he lost some minutes or whatever, and things can happen. But I think he's good for a bounce back year. The Marcus Smart extension, wow. We'll see what happens there. I think Marcus comes off a very tough year. He made some on-court mistakes, some mental mistakes. He wasn't a good defender as he was. He was injured at times. He missed a month with the ankle injury, the calf injury. So does Marcus have something to prove? So I think what Brad was able to do was to get these guys on contracts. They're not worried about their deals. Now they can just ball. Okay, everybody's signed. Everybody's back except Dennis Schroeder. And so when you only have one guy, I think a couple years ago when that team with Rozier and Marcus Morris and Kyrie, you had everybody worried about their deals, right? And so, in my opinion, this team, you don't have those concerns. So it should be throw the ball on the court, go at each other like crazy, make each other better, and try to make some noise in the East.
Does it make sense to you that Brad and this organization, obviously, I mean, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that goes without saying, but adding Marcus Smart and Robert Williams by virtue of the extensions, adding them to that undisputed core, that this is our core four. not to say no one could be traded down the road or anything like that, but this is our core four right now. We're giving big money, certainly to Smart. Williams, I think that deal could turn out to be a steal if he can just stay on the floor. But does the makeup of this make sense to you? Was it the right approach?
Yeah, I thought the Williams extension was interesting. I mean, obviously he had the 9-block game against Brooklyn in game one. He really affected it, and then he got hurt again. The whole key was keeping him on the floor. But it is a tradable contract, so you can move 11 to 12 million a year. That's a very movable contract in today's NBA economics. So I think it was good for him to be able to sign a deal to show that they had faith in him, but also with incentives and also knowing that if you were healthy, you could have made more. I mean, he could have made 20 if he had played instead of 113 games over 3 years. He plays 160, 170. He probably makes $8-9 million more a year. He may push the 20 level if he has that type of impact. But now he's got something to push for. And the same, I think, with Smart. He was going to enter a walk year. The contract is still tradable, like Williams' contract is. So I don't think that's like, oh man, it's going to be an anchor of a deal where they're going to be stuck with him. And he's only 20.
With the new TV money coming in.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I mean, Marcus is literally just 27. He's still a young. He's still considered a young veteran. Although this contract will be until his 30s. But I think that you give him that kind of security, I think he'll prove how much he'll show how much he's willing to win and wants to win and wants to be great, wants the team to be great. I think the thing is great for them, the organization, is not having a bunch of players worried about their deals. Not having a bunch of players have to go for mine. I gotta get these incentives. I gotta show everybody else I can play. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do next year, where I'm gonna live, where my family's gonna be. Like, there's no issues with that on this roster. Besides a Cantor, and some guys are on 1-year deals, but the core players are all locked in, except Schroeder, and that'll figure itself out. He'll play with his hair on fire to get that new deal that he felt like he missed out on, and he turned down with the Lakers. But I think the stage is set for a very surprisingly good year for the Celtics.
Yeah, and you talk about that hangover that looms over your head of the deal that you might not get, you might get that financial security, et cetera, et cetera. I was listening to Chris Vernon and Kevin O'Connor talk about that, and Vernon actually mentioned Smart by name, like that. It did affect his play last year, and his injuries obviously wasn't the same, but like that, not every guy deals with that really well. You have certain guys that in contract years play out of their minds, right? It's like just this like, that 1 year where it all clicks. They're shooting 43% from three and moving the ball, all that stuff. But with Marcus, do you think it really had that effect on him? Do you think that having that, he's in a walk year next year, he's extension eligible. Do you think that not having that financial security really affected him last season?
I don't know if it affected him. I think that he came off last year trying to do a little too much. The year, he wanted to push it to the next level, then he got hurt. And I think as a defender, I think he slipped some. I think, he didn't make some smart plays, the flagrant against San Antonio, and, the boneheaded half-court shot against the Pelicans, things that were like, come on, Marcus, what's going on, man? I think that there was something to him that was going on, and it could have been, and he kind of alluded to that, and then he was getting over COVID. He had COVID, one of the first guys to come. So I just think there was a lot going on with him, and I think this does give him peace of mind. And I think any players like that, especially when you're looking at like, well, who's going to value me? How much money am I going to make? That can really affect you. So now he knows Boston loves him. He knows the Celtics love him. Brad loves him. He may want some a bit bigger role. He could be the key to this team this year. If he can be a distributor, less of a shooter, and play the right way all the time, this team could be very good. the dynamic between him and Schroeder will be interesting. Both of them like to shoot. Schroeder, I like his game. He likes to score. I thought he was a good, solid player last year for the Lakers. Not great, but he'll have something to prove. So let's see how that dynamic works out. I think it'll be very interesting.
We've talked about a lot of the members of this team in general, because look, I think we're very like-minded on this. And I know Bobby Marks of ESPN, the former executive in the NBA, as we know, with Brooklyn, high on Boston. He said on Instagram, I guess on Tuesday, to read his quote. Let's see here. He said, "I'm going to make a bold prediction, and I don't like making predictions. I'm going to say the Boston Celtics are going to be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Miami, and Boston. Not sure on the order. Sorry, Sixers fans. I think they are heading into turmoil this year. I'm not putting any eggs in that Sixers basket. I just think people are sleeping on the Celtics. I think they're under the radar." I think there's no question they are a considerably deeper team than they were last year. You can talk about what they lose in Kemba Walker. Problem, obviously, is that Walker was very inconsistently on the floor, couldn't play back-to-backs. Fournier, he's a name. He had a good career in Orlando, but he never was in Boston, say for the, random game, what he was there with the Magic, what the Celtics hope to acquire. COVID had a lot to do with that, obviously. They're both gone. They're Knicks. I think the Celtics, top to bottom, there's a lot of depth if they can stay on the floor. They were hit harder by injuries and COVID than any other team in the NBA last year. If they can get themselves right and just be available, I think this can be a very good team.
Yeah, and the expectations aren't high. And you've got, Brown coming back to the mix. We'll see how the dynamic with Schroeder and Richardson. I think you got a lot of guys who want to win and know that they can probably do it there, and they will take advantage of that opportunity. I do think they could be a very sneaky good team. Cantor can bring you some energy and offensive rebounding off the bench. Horford, I think, still has something left. I think some of his games in Oklahoma City were very good. I don't think he's going to come to. Obviously he's not the Al of 5 years ago, but I do think he can add a dynamic to the team. He can stretch the floor, and he'll be playing a more comfortable role where Ime will use him. So I think that there's all types of possibilities with this team. It's not that third superstar that Brooklyn has, or even if you look at Milwaukee with Holiday and Middleton, in addition to Giannis, and then now Miami has Butler and Lowry and Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, and those guys down there. So
Bulls got some talent too. I don't know if they're going to stop anybody, but they can score.
I didn't hear you. What team?
Bulls.
Oh, the Bulls.
Made
Yeah, I'm not. I just don't trust the Bulls. I'm sorry. We've heard about the Bulls the last 3 years as a rising team. Now they got DeRozan. Kobe White's good. Vucevic.
Lonzo.
Yeah, Lonzo. We'll see how that goes. And Levine. We'll see how that goes. I'm just not sold on the Bulls yet as like a legit contender. You got to win 40 games first. I see them as winning 45 games. Yep, I'm all on that train. I don't know about 56, but I just think that they have the Celtics have an opportunity to be good. It all depends on the chemistry, and it all depends on Udoka's new approach, fresh blood, fresh voices, fresh faces. It was just they cleaned house. Jamie Young gone, Jerome Allen gone, Scott Morrison gone, Evan Turner gone. We'll see how that all translates to winning and how that translates to them being, punching first, get out on this schedule and start, just defending, being a much better defensive team.
Well, it's clear that's the emphasis of many of these moves this offseason too, right? I mean, between you've already got obviously the Jays and Smart and Williams, but you bring back Horford, you bring in Schroeder, you bring in Richardson, you bring in Dunn. Defense, Brad always wanted that to be the calling card. Ime, listening to him, that's the calling card. That's the focus right now. Yeah,
it should be. So I think that they have a real chance to be good. It's just all a matter of chemistry, what condition Brown is in. Is he healthy? We haven't heard anything from Schroeder yet. We'll see what he says. I don't know if we'll have to wait till media day in a month or whatever, but I think they have a chance. They have talent. Like, this is not like, I think the one thing that was problem last year is once you got past like the 6th or 7th guy on this team, it was like, what the hell? And even you've got Pritchard and Nesmith who are coming back, who are going to help too. Both coming
Are they
off
getting
solid.
buried though?
I think that they'll have to fight for minutes. I think with Richardson, who could play the backcourt position, and Smart and Schroeder, Pritchard's going to have to fight for minutes, and we'll see what Nesmith and Langford can bring. And we don't know about Grant Williams. Like, is that, with Horford and Williams, Robert Williams there, is Grant like the third big? Is he fighting with Cantor for minutes? Is Brad going to play him at a 3-4? Like, he can play different positions. He's not necessarily good at all those positions, but he can defend and try to, do something at the 3, 4, and 5. So I think he's got a chance to fight for minutes. I think, like the young guys are going to have to fight for minutes, but I think seeing him in summer league and seeing like they're all attempting to take the next step.
Somebody does still have to go too. I mean, with 16 guaranteed contracts,
Yes.
I'm not saying that's Grant necessarily. Maybe it's Parker or I don't know. I mean, maybe Dunn gets traded. Maybe it's Fernando. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but somebody on this
Somebody's
roster
got to go.
won't be here. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody, or have their contract translate to a two-way. Someone's going to have to go.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone fits the two-way criteria.
No, and so and Dunn makes $5 million, so you'd like to trade him instead of eating that. You don't know about is it Carson Edwards? Is it Parker? Like it's a lot of little moving parts, little moves that need to be made. Over the next few weeks. But I think for the core, I think that they can be a solid, very, very good club.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to keep Fernando on this roster. I love what he brought in summer league, and if you're going to have Grant Williams as a backup small ball 5, and you have Enes Kanter as your third big on the depth chart, like you're thin. And Robert Williams is an injury risk, and if you have him and Horford, who's in his 30s, like you just need bodies. And like Bruno, like okay, is he 6'8", 6'9"? Yeah, sure, but that guy, you never question his energy, you never question his hustle. Plays defense. I'm finding a way to keep him on the roster, and with the amount of guards they've had, it's whatever. I just think.
Well, plus he needs to be there for KG's retirement night.
Right, exactly. Which is that's
huge Garnett fan.
I wanted to, well, I did want to I wanted to get to that later in the show potentially. I don't know if we want to roll into that now, but
whatever you want.
There's this KG number retirement has certain people feeling certain types of ways. Like I love KG, one of my favorite Celtics of recent memory for sure. Changed the culture of this team, and obviously they don't hang banner 17 without KG and without Ray Allen, without Paul Pierce, without James Posey, and everybody on that team contributing. But the big question is Kevin Garnett's number worthy of retirement considering the history of the Boston Celtics, Gary Washburn?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, if you in comparison to some of the other guys that have been retired.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is, right? It's all relative. Like
I kind of relate it, but it's not. Hopefully, this isn't blasphemy. Kind of a Dennis Johnson, where he played. Like he played somewhere else. His best years, like Dennis Johnson, was a lockdown defender with Phoenix and Seattle. Like he won a championship in Seattle. He was a lockdown elite point guard in Seattle. He comes to Boston a little older and then leads them to the, championships, the 2 championships. I don't know if was he on the 81 team? Or was that?
I think it's 2.
Yeah, I think 84 and 86, because I think it was Nate Archibald was the kind of the lead guard in the 81 team. So here comes DJ. And I just think he got his number retired. And God bless him.
One championship with Boston. Joined him in 83, 84.
Okay.
So 84 and 86.
Was he not on the team in 86? I thought he was on the team in 86.
Yeah, he was on the team in 86.
Okay. So it should be 2 then.
Oh, you know what? I take it back. I was looking at his all-star seasons. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay, so he wins 2 titles. So I kind of related to that. Like he wasn't there 12, 13 years. He was there like 7, I want to say 7 or 8. And I don't have a problem with KG getting his number retired because he changed the entire culture of the franchise. I'm not a big, I've written about this in the past. You can go back and look at some of the guys, Bill Sharman and Frank Lasky and, some of the guys who have their numbers retired. And especially in this generation where we don't remember these players, we never saw them play. The YouTube video is grainy. They're wearing low top chucks. It denigrates their accomplishments at the time. So I don't want to speak out against. Well, they should. All those guys from the '60s, except Russell and Cousy, they should just reinstate their numbers. Like, no, I don't want to say that. I can't say how valuable a player Casey Jones was, Sam Jones was, and yeah, they took cool numbers. There's no cool numbers anymore. 21's taken, 22's retired, 23's retired, 24's retired, 25's retired. 33's retired, 34's retired, 32's retired, like 31's retired, like 10's retired, 15's retired, 14's retired. Now 5's retired. Like it is what it is.
I mean, look no further than Jason Tatum. Dude's got to be number 0.
Yeah. So 0, and that's going to be that's going to be retired. Like it's going to be, where guys are wearing football numbers out there, and it is what it is. Do I think they pulled the trigger a little too quickly in the '60s on retiring all these guys' numbers? Did they know that the future did they see that Cowens and Havlicek and JoJo White and all those guys were coming? Probably no, because you can't even wear like 14 through 19 are all retired. It's crazy. Like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 are all retired. 20 isn't, but 21 through 25 is retired. Like it is what it is. It's funny, but it was like you have the preeminent franchise of the 60s. A lot of those guys deserved it at that particular time. You can't take it back.
Yeah.
Right.
Do I think
Exactly.
Garnett? I think they'll be a little bit more selective, obviously in current times, because you would ask, well, does Ray Allen deserve to have his number retired? He played a year less than Garnett. He helped to the championship. He's a Hall of Famer. Some guys, if you're a Hall of Famer, you get your number retired wherever you went. Like a Wilt Chamberlain and some of these guys who played 2 or 3 years in a place and got their number retired because they were a Hall of Famer. Oscar Robertson in Milwaukee, in addition to Cincinnati. So it's a
just
debate.
teams desperate to retire numbers, though.
Huh?
Those are some of the teams that are just desperate to
Some of
retire
those teams
numbers.
are. Some of those teams are. But I also think in Boston, you can't go back on history. There's nothing you can really do. It is what it is. I think he deserves to have his number retired because he changed the entire direction of the franchise. You guys were around in the early and mid 2000s. The losing streaks. Our future is Gerald Green, Orion Green, Al Jefferson. Those are our guys that are going to, book it. We're going to the finals with those guys. Like it just didn't work. Like the youth movement. Let's be bad for years and draft young. No,
I was all in on Ryan Gomes. I was all in.
They got to the conference final in what, 02, 03?
Yeah, and they lost to a really bad Nets team.
Yeah.
Like the Nets, those 2 Nets teams that made the finals, solid teams, but the East was bad during the Indiana team that made the finals, watching the Lakers, the Philly team that lost 4-1. Like until the Pistons kind of came up, and then
Pacers had that window.
Yeah, the Pistons. Yeah, we can talk about that. The brawl. But
yeah, great doc if anyone hasn't watched it on Netflix
Pistons
yet.
in 04, and then here comes Shaq, changes everything in science to Miami. the West was ruling things. The East had some really bad teams, like the Knicks of '99 that made the finals, the Pacers. Like you look at the East from like '98, after the obviously the coincides with some dude retiring in Chicago. From '98 to '08 until like the big three, you would think like the best team. There was only really two really champions, and that was the '06 Heat and the '04 Pistons. So you can say, yeah, they made the conference finals against the Nets, but the East was terrible back then. It just was. It was awful, and they were able to obviously rebuild. There was some shifts and power shifts in terms of players and all that. So I think if you remember how bad it was in Boston, and you remember what Garnett and Allen too did to the franchise and brought the swagger back to the Celtics, and then the rest of it, his entire career, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You gotta retire.
I agree, and it's relative. Like you said, you compared it to some of the people that they've already retired. It's not like some of these organizations that have 5 retired numbers, and Garnett wouldn't fit a certain criteria. He does in Boston, so it makes sense. This reminded me of something that has nothing to do with, well, it could do with the Celtics, but it has nothing to do with this year's Celtics, that's for sure. But something I was talking about with somebody yesterday, and it's so perfect for you too, being not only a guy who covers the Celtics, but the entire NBA as the national reporter for the Boston Globe. If I can play editor for a second, here's a piece that I would love to read if you have any interest in writing it at some point during this year. So this is obviously the 75th anniversary of the NBA. And as I'm sure you remember, and I do, heck, I got the DVD behind me that Denzel Washington narrated 25 years ago, the NBA puts out its top 50 players. What I'm curious to know, and I don't expect you to do this off the top of your head, which is why I say I'd love to read it. I'm very curious. I don't know if the NBA plans to put out its 75 and 75. I hope they do.
They are. Yes.
Well, great, because I'm interested in seeing that. I'm curious. I guess what I'm most curious to see is if anybody, because so many great players have come along in the last 25 years, truly transcendent players. If there are enough that have come along in the last 25 years, or guys who were, 2 years into their career in '96 that, have gone on to be Hall of Famers, obviously.
Yes.
If any of them,
it's going to be 25 guys. Yes.
Well, but so what I'm wondering though is if there are enough that have come along since that it's going to bump any of the 50, original 50 out.
Yes.
Is Lenny Wilkins out of the top 75?
Or Jerry Lucas, or Sam Jones, or yes, it's going to be sticky.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see what it looks like.
You look at it, okay, it was 96, 97 year. Shaq was the only player to make that team from that era.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was like still relatively young. Shaq came into the league in '92. Okay. So look at the draft class of '96. Okay. Kobe, he's in. It's Ray Allen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Nash, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Top 75.
Yeah.
If you look, Iverson, you got to put him in there, right?
I think so.
4 guys already. And that's just from the draft class of '96. We haven't talked about '03. I haven't mentioned Tim Duncan. I haven't mentioned Kevin Garnett. I haven't mentioned this Tracy McGrady, like that he could be on the bubble. We're not. And
Carmelo
we haven't
Anthony.
Carmelo. We haven't even gotten to '03 yet. Right? We haven't gotten there. Pierce.
Yeah, I think Pierce belongs. I mean, heck, there are a lot of people that put Pierce as the 4th best Celtic.
Dirk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I just mentioned 7 guys, and we haven't even gotten to the 2000s.
Yeah, I haven't hit LeBron yet, or Durant.
No, we have not hit the class of '03. We haven't had Steph, Harden, Durant.
Right.
Like some of, I was working.
Giannis. You're going to have to put Giannis on that team, right?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Harden, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Westbrook.
I would put him on there.
I mean, historically with the numbers, man. I mean, it's going to be hard.
And then
Here, I'll read you. I'll read you guys right now. I'll read you guys a bunch of because I'm
on the list right now.
Yesterday, just kind of screwing around, and I'll read you a bunch of guys, Gary, that you tell me. Like, stop me if you feel one of these guys does not belong on the top 75. LeBron, Kobe, Durant, Duncan, Wade, Curry, Dirk, Pierce, Garnett, Nash, Kidd, Giannis, Iverson, maybe Anthony Davis. I don't know if you're ready to put Luka there yet.
No,
I wouldn't think so, but some people are going to talk about him. Westbrook.
If Shaq made it in his 4th year,
that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
You could argue for Luka. Remember, Shaq made it. That was a 96, 97 year. Shaq had just gotten to the Lakers. Like, that was not 3 championships, Shaq. That was
right.
4
No, he hadn't won anything yet.
Yes, he had not won anything. So what about Dennis Rodman?
Yeah, Rodman, Westbrook, Harden, Vince Carter, Chris Paul,
Tracy
McGrady on the bubble.
Always in the bubble.
Kawhi Leonard, Damian Lillard, Carmelo Anthony. Like, that's like 25 guys right there.
That's 25 guys. So, excuse me, like Jerry Lucas, guys that people don't like. I think Jerry Lucas is a remarkable player. But when I did my top 50, I got so much heat about Jerry Lucas, and people didn't look up his numbers. They don't really remember Jerry Lucas. Yeah. Late in his career, he played with the Knicks and won a title, but he was a beast, right?
Sure.
Bob Pettit. You just hope
Dave
DeBusschere.
Yeah,
Dave DeBusschere. Like
Billy
Sam
Cunningham. Get the hell off this list.
It's going to be, it all depends on who's voting.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be some ex-players, media. The young people are not going to get this. Like, this is going to separate the generations even further.
Yeah.
There's already an ocean between basketball generations of people who think LeBron is the greatest or Jordan or whatever. Right. This is going to, because the young people are going to be like, well, what about Trae Young? Or what about,
who the hell is George Mikan?
Yeah, they're going to leave Mikan way off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
get him off the list. I've never even heard of him.
Like, they're gonna ask, they're gonna be like, well, what about this guy? What about Luka? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're gonna ask questions. Anthony Davis, what about him? What about Klay Thompson? Klay's 175 all the time.
Yeah.
That's an argument. What about Draymond? Draymond's headed to the Hall of Fame. Is he? He's on the bubble, but it's a debate, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. This is going to start a lot of stuff, like, because the young folks already are like, they don't even remember. They don't even
Hal Greer.
They're like Hal Greer. Julius Erving was okay, but like, what about like George Gervin? What? Well, like, they don't relate. They don't understand. Right. And then you got the guys
George
who were left
Gervin,
off.
in fairness, could become a bubble guy.
Dominique Wilkins.
Awesome.
Dominique Wilkins didn't make it. There were guys that didn't make it who were
Wilkins
Dominique
wasn't on the 50
Wilkins.
list?
He did not make it.
He is not on the. He's not on the. I got the list in front of me. He's not on the list.
That
did not make the list.
Yeah, he's got to put him in the 75.
Artis Gilmore didn't make the list, if I'm not mistaken.
Artie Gilmore not on the list.
Yeah, I mean, there were guys who even then were pissed that they didn't make the list.
Sure.
Who were going to be like, "Oh, what's up now? We got 25 more spots."
Yeah, exactly.
And then guys like Chris Mullen.
Yeah.
Mitch Richmond, guys who are on the Mitch Richmond, who's in the hall. Like, it's going to be fascinating how this all shakes out, because I'm interested to see what guys currently, I'm not talking about under 30, are going to make that list. Curry's 32, Durant's 32.
Right.
They're all in. Harden's 32. The guys who were drafted like in the late 2000s, that's not a debate. It is the current, besides Giannis, okay, who is in Kawhi, Luka, Trae Young, like we mentioned, is there a 25 or 20, like Shaq was literally 24 when he made that team. When 96, 97, that was his 24 to be 25 year.
Yeah. That was that was the NBA, foreshadowing, basically.
Yes. And so obviously you saw, like, okay, this dude's going to be a beast. So is there someone who's 25, 26 who's going to make that team?
Marcus Smart, obviously.
What about
Luka is a guy
what
that
Jason
will get a lot of freaking votes. Especially from young people.
Before I can't
Get a
remember.
lot of support. We'll get a lot of support.
Is he the only? He's got to be the only guy, though. I mean, of that group, like, don't give me Trae Young. I mean, just don't. I mean, I
No, not
Trae.
yet. No, not yet.
You can't
You
sell
have to
me.
put him on
Trae
the
Young.
100 team. Put him on the
there
100
you go.
team. 20,
Yeah.
But like I got it. Like Luka's the only guy I would feel any good about in terms of that adding any one of these younger superstars to a list. That's
Right.
the only guy I feel good about.
Just because you know it's coming.
Right.
As long as he stays healthy.
Like
anyway.
I'm not adding DeAndre Ayton. I'm not adding Bam Adebayo. I'm not adding Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown or Ben Simmons.
Right.
Joel Embiid, maybe? Can we?
Joel Embiid. What do you want? Joel Embiid.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why I want to see the list, Gary. I want to see the list.
Kyrie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Champion.
Jokic. Is Jokic.
Man, just won MVP, fresh off the MVP too.
Jokic. Is he?
Man.
Ah.
I don't know. I don't think Jokic makes it.
I don't think so either.
Just fresh off the I mean, Giannis is a lock because he's a two-time MVP and an NBA champion now. Like, that's lock.
Well, multiple.
Jokic, I don't know if I can get on the Jokic train.
So there's very interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
There's going to be 10 guys bumped off. There's going to be 35 new players, I believe, on this list. At least 10 guys get bumped off. And they're all going to be either dead or in their 70s. I don't think, like, we'll have to see, but I think that they did a very good job in 97 of getting all the recent guys, the 80s and 90s, the Barkleys. Like, they're not bumping Barkley off. They're not bumping Isaiah off. They're not bumping, obviously, Magic and Bird. They're in. Russell's going to stay. Chamberlain's in. But some of these guys, the Dolph Shays, the Bob Pettits, Dave Bings, Bob Lanier's, like, those are the guys I think that will be questioned. And how do you come to your Hall of Famers, your legends, and go, you didn't make this cut? Like, that's a tough one. Like, I applaud the NBA for doing this. We'll see what happens in the voting, but it's fascinating.
When are they announcing it?
I don't know if it's going to be because obviously the All-Star game will be back in Cleveland like it was in '97. I think they said October, but if I'm them, I do the All-Star weekend. I don't know if you can do like you did in '97 and bring all those guys there. That was historic. And then look, a guy like Maravich might be bumped off, or Bill Walton. Like, those guys made it. Maravich.
Sure.
A note here. Of the 50 that got voted in, 47 made it to Cleveland. Okay, did you guys know that? 47.
No, I didn't.
49
anyway.
of the 50 that voted in, 49 were still alive. Maravich was the only one that was dead. Shaq didn't show up because he had a knee injury and missed the All-Star game, and Jerry West. So Shaq didn't even get Shaq. I mean, it's crazy. And he said afterwards, "Well, if I'd known it was going to be like that, where there was going to be like legends and." Those guys came out at halftime and all wore the jackets. You had Mikan and Chamberlain and Russell all in one place. Like, that's historic. And Shaq didn't show. Like, Shaq doesn't show up. Like, come on, man. Like, come on.
Well, where was West? He's the logo.
West was like sick, and West might have been like, West might have been like 63 at the time or something. Okay, he said he was ill.
Yeah,
but Shaq doesn't show up to that thing.
Better.
That was the funny part. Like, because he did not play in the All-Star game that year because of his knee.
Yeah,
and then you look and you see the history. Like, you're just never going to get that again. So it's a fascinating thing. But we can bring up 35 guys who could be qualified for that. That's it. We have Embiid, Giannis, Jokic, what about those guys?
Yeah.
And then some of the guys from the early 90s, Kidd is a guy. Grant Hill, kind of shaky. because of his injuries. But there's
yeah.
guys who were like in the middle. Alonzo Mourning, could be on that list. Obviously, we're gonna go with Duncan's in.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
That whole three. I mean, Manu, ZN.
Yeah, I don't know.
Parker?
Manu and Parker might be like questionable, but like you look at the class of 03, LeBron, Melo, Wade. You put Bosh on there. That's debatable. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are going to be very interested in to see if they make this list. And then we all, the Currys, the Hardens, the Durants, the LeBrons, like all their, we all know they're in. So someone's getting their spot taken, unfortunately.
The more
You
I
only
think
have
about it,
so
the
many,
more I don't know. I just don't know if I can get behind the Luka thing. The more I think about it, I mean, I know he's all world and going to be this.
That would be typical. So it was projection, just like Shaq.
Right.
Shaq was dominating the league at that time, but he was only 24.
And it was a shorter list, which is even more remarkable.
You put Luka on there. Yeah, they put Shaq in over, like we said, Dominique and Artis Gilmore.
Right.
In those days. So it would be fascinating to see like who makes this list, who from very current NBA makes this list, the under 30, and then is there guys that were omitted or were young in 96, 97? Because obviously you're going to go with Kobe, you're going to go with, is Ray Allen is up for it, Pierce, all those guys. Ooh, interesting.
You get plenty of people reading, Bleacher Report, and everybody else is going to put out their lists. I'm looking forward to, seeing yours, obviously.
Yeah, that's something I would definitely tackle.
It would seem at this point weird to go back to talking about this year's Celtics. So, Evan, anything you'd like to add before we get out of here?
I guess the only question I have is, can we take anything away from Tatum's Olympics, in terms of his relationship with Ime? I guess that's my only question. Do you have any,
they were able to get closer. I don't think Ime was sitting there talking like plays with him and X's and O's. I do think that they were it was an opportunity for them to get to know each other. And I also think there was a good opportunity for Tatum to play under Pop, to learn how to be a better defender, to be a game changer and more than just scoring. He had a couple of key block shots in that run. He had some stops. He was able to rebound because remember, like they didn't really have any rebounding. Tatum had to rebound. He had to distribute the ball at times. I think a couple of games he was their leading assist man. So I think the experience for him was invaluable. And you only wish that Jalen was healthy enough to join him in Tokyo, because he would have obviously been on that team had he not hurt his wrist. So I think they have a lot of upside. I think it will be a productive, a positive year. Now they're going to be favorites. No, you got a healthy Brooklyn team that's realigned. Now they got Patty Mills, and they brought back Blake, and they're ready to roll. If they're completely healthy and with no distractions, Milwaukee's going to want to prove some things. Miami is retooled. We don't know about, as Bobby Marks said, we don't know about the Sixers and what they're going to bring. And then there's going to be a couple of rising teams: Charlotte, Chicago. Mm-hmm. What about Indiana? A lot left to be determined in the East.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. We'll come on back next week and talk some more, see what's happened. But if there's any breaking news later tonight, Gary has promised he will not be the one reporting it, because he wouldn't do that to us. Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe, Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. Gary, thanks always for the time, my friend.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, folks, we'll join you again next week.